Welcome back to another episode of Water Guy Unfiltered. I'm Paul.
I'm Ethan.
And we are back to entertain, educate, and have a little fun.
Yes.
So, what have you been up to?
You
look exhausted.
I'm a little exhausted. This snow's been kicking our butts, dude. As you know, I live out in the sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means we have above ground power lines.
Oh, gosh.
And a lot of trees. Our power went out for 3 days. Yeah.
Seems like we just had an episode where we were talking about power going out from snow, and
Yeah.
that was the whole water went out in Richmond, and here we are again with another storm.
Yep. So the fun part about this one, though, was because our power went out for 3 days, I had to throw everything away in my fridge. Which is whatever. It's just part of it. It's.
You didn't eat it?
No. No, I can't.
For those of you listening, Ethan doesn't know me well enough to know, and I'll tell a story about what I do. 3 days?
Yeah.
That's a drop in the bucket.
But during this 3-day power outage, we had to throw our food away. Like I said, whatever, we can just buy more food. So
Take a loan out.
What was that?
Take a loan out now.
Yeah. So Friday our power comes back on. Too busy Saturday, couldn't go grocery shopping. We go grocery shopping Sunday after church. Get home, and that's when it's like super windy. This was after all the rain, right? So it's like super windy and stuff, right? We get
Restock your fridge.
Yeah, we have all the groceries. I have all my cold stuff sitting on the counter. We're tossing the stuff away in the fridge. I'm about ready to start restocking our fridge.
No.
Power goes out again. I was pissed, dude. I was so upset. The power came back on in like 2 minutes, so we were good. But dude, I was like, we spent all this money. I'm so angry. And then,
gosh.
It was a whole thing, man. But we're good. We have fresh food now.
That is terrible. Yeah, no, you said about 3 days you throw it away. This is a funny story, and my dad will probably never listen to this episode, but he... for Christmas, he gets me this Omaha Steaks thing, which is, if those of you that know what I'm talking about, it's basically this gigantic styrofoam box that they ship out from, I'm assuming, Omaha, Nebraska. And it's full of meat, frozen meats. And they put dry ice in there and stuff like that to keep it all on ice until it gets to where it's going, and it can stay for days. Usually, because that friggin' styrofoam's got to be like 3 or 4 inches thick.
Oh, yeah.
So you could throw it, kick the thing, tape it shut, and it's not going anywhere. So before Christmas, it was kind of funny because we had like some warm periods, and I didn't know that he shipped it. Right, I don't get the notifications. He doesn't have it set up or anything where I'm told. And my front door, the way the house is set up, I don't use the front door.
Right.
But that's where they decided to deliver this stuff.
No, right. Of course.
Yeah. So, long story short, I find this package on the front because I just randomly opened the door on the weekend. I think it got there like Monday.
Oh, dude.
Maybe even earlier. It could have been 2 weeks. I have no idea. But I'm like, oh, that's my steaks. So I opened the steaks up, and every single one of them, they felt cool to the touch. But they were 100% defrosted.
Oh, no.
But, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, there's all this meat. So I ate the heck out of this meat. That's why I'm laughing, because you threw your stuff away. I'm like, I got to eat it all. So I probably ate like 8 pounds of steak that day.
Dude, food poisoning has done me wrong too many times. I can't risk anything anymore.
Botulism could be your friend. Women use it all the time. So do some men.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. No, but that's a whole nother conversation. Botox. I make some wicked spiced oil because I love hot peppers and things like that. So this goes back probably like 5 years. I have all these crazy peppers going: ghost peppers, habaneros, chili piquins, jalapenos. Just a whole assortment of the hottest of the hot.
Right.
And you can't eat that stuff. I mean, it's not probably that healthy. They say that it's got antioxidants and stuff like that. But here I was with literally like an entire 5-gallon bucket full of peppers. And these were so hot you couldn't just sit there and enjoy them. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to wash them, dry them, slice them, and put them in like a big glass jar, like a whiskey jar or something like that, which I'd had a few of those collected over the years, and they still had the tops. So I'm putting I can't give out all the secrets of what I put in there, but garlic was one of the ingredients.
Okay.
Some rosemary, like fresh picked right out of the garden, the whole shooting match. So I long story short, I filled this thing up like 2/3 with peppers and spices and cracked whole peppercorns and stuff like that. And then I put, went to Costco, picked up one of those big jugs of oil, the olive oil, extra virgin, topped it all off with that.
Nice.
And that was year one. And I let it sit for like 3 months. And I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be like. It was magical. Yeah, it became such a hit that everybody started asking for it. So I started bottling this stuff. I got those little Tabasco-sized bottles. And it became one of those every year, Paul's Oil.
Nice. Paul's Oil.
Paul's Oil. But 3 years ago now, it started bubbling when I was sitting there watching them. I'd release the pressure and bubbles started coming up. And I'm like, oh, that's unusual. So I called my brother-in-law, and he's a doctor. So he said, oh my gosh, that's most likely botulism. And I'm like, well, what do we do? He's like, we were torn because on one hand, it's the most deadly toxin in the world. I think like a teaspoon of it could wipe out the whole population of America.
Wow.
But on the other hand, it's so good when the finished product was there. So we chanced it. He's like, you can't throw it away. I'm like, I know. It's too good to throw away. That's when you know it's good, when you're willing to risk botulism. And so he's doing all his research on how to neutralize the toxin. And the toxin is really what kills you. But I think he did something with a pressure cooker, and he put it through sounds like a pasteurization type process. And we tried it.
Pasteurizing your oils now?
Yep. So that's what kind of got us going on that. And now that's just become part of the process, because now that I know that botulism is a real possibility.
Now, what is botulism?
It's a bacteria.
Okay.
And actually, botulism, and we're just winging this because I have not done any digging up on botulism, but it's a colostrum. There's like 3 different bacteria, and they start with colostrum. Like, I'll have to look it up, but basically, these 3 bacteria, they make this toxin. And this is where it gets a little confusing, because the toxin is the part that kills you.
Right.
The bacteria aren't that big of a deal. It's the fact that when a bacteria gets inside you, it creates a million of them.
All right.
And then they all start producing toxin, and then you're dead. Well, the botulism, I just gave away where I was going with this whole thing. The botulism toxin is actually it's like a paralytic. It will cause you to basically be paralyzed, your muscles to stop working.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you take a nap permanently. Oh. So it's no joke. It's worse than regular food poisoning.
Yeah.
So I gave away the name Botox. So Botox is the botulism toxin.
Wow.
But it's in doses that have been, you can imagine, extremely carefully like measured out and weakened, I guess would be the best way to say it. But since it paralyzes things, that's why a lot of women get it injected in their foreheads, because it makes you don't have any wrinkles anymore.
Interesting.
And yeah, for those of you that really want to go digging around on the internet, look up Brotox here in Richmond. Brotox.
That's a familiar name.
We were going back, oh my gosh, what was this? This was back when I was with Home Depot. 2012 maybe? So yeah, like this, we're talking a while ago. And I was in there with the team, and one of the leaders, he was like, hey, my neighbor is this plastic surgeon, and he does a lot of Botox, and he's trying to develop a market for men. and he wants to call it Brotox. And we're all kind of like, what kind of guy would get Botox?
Right.
You know, at the time it was just unheard of. Me being the sucker that I am, he was like, he told me that if I know anybody that wants to get it done and be part of his commercial, he'll do it for free. So I'm like, oh, what the hell? Sign me up.
Yeah, Botox me, Brotox me, bro.
So yep. So long story short, yes, I was on a Brotox video like 13 years ago. It was kind of funny.
Wow.
But yeah, I knew Botox and botulism well back then.
Yeah, we're getting 10 minutes in. We get some Paul lore.
Yeah, this was completely unplanned.
All right.
Small talk here today, all because of another power outage and food spoiling. Yeah, this week has been weird. It's been a weird week.
Yeah.
We had 2 snow days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I had one. This goes to show our dedication here. Wednesday, it snowed. And I was like, it's supposed to start snowing middle of the day and go towards the end of the day. So I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure we're not going to be working Thursday because it's going to be a nightmare out there.
Frozen and stuff.
Yeah, because we're still in the 20s. So it was still pretty doggone cold. And ice is not something you want to play around with. But Wednesday, it decided to come in earlier, as you might have remembered. Instead of coming in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it was already a couple inches down on the ground by like 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
So that kind of wrecked our Wednesday. So we started and we basically had to pull the plug on the day. And everybody went home that wasn't from the north, like myself and my main technician who grew up in Ohio. So we're used to it. Yeah. I even, all the other guys are scared to be on the roads. And I'm like, we call it road skiing. It's fun. You just have to understand. It's like drifting in a car.
Yeah. If
you do it enough, it becomes second nature.
If you understand physics, you'll be fine. You'll have a blast.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yes. As long as your tires have a lot to do with it. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
So Wednesday night, it's coming down. At this point, it's bad. People are all hunkering down, and I get a call. One of our customers. And I got this soft spot for the little ladies.
Right.
I don't know why, but I just do. Maybe it's because I'm human.
We all do.
She calls in. She doesn't have any water in her house.
Oh.
And she's in this blizzard. And I'm like, doggone it. It's 12 minutes from my house. It's 12 brutal minutes on the road, but it's 12 minutes from the house.
Right.
So I'm not going to expose any of my guys to any of this stuff. So
right.
I get in the truck that I had, which is not a four-wheel drive truck.
Oh, no.
And I'm driving down, and she lives like out in the country a little bit.
Yeah.
And the roads hadn't been plowed. I'm driving a rear-wheel drive pickup truck, thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? We should just tell her, sorry, but you're going to have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, Richmond, we went almost 3 days without water, right? She can go a few more hours.
Be all right.
But long story short, I got out there, and it was a frozen pipe. So I defrosted it for her, got her water running. She was overjoyed, and I made it home safely.
Yeah.
So that was my victory on Wednesday night.
Very good. Man of the people, Paul.
Man of the people.
You're a man of the people.
So if you're a little old lady looking for somebody that cares, that's us.
Yeah.
We cannot let you sit high and dry. But that was this week. Last week was an interesting one. We didn't talk about the taste test at all, did we, last week?
Mm-mm.
I didn't think so, because this all happened after our last episode.
Yeah.
So today's episode, we're going to call this one, My Water is Your Water.
All right.
If you're in California. So this is an episode that I'm going to be really, really careful about revealing any details that might identify anybody. So, but everything I'm about to tell you is sanitized, but 100% true. So, we've got this client that I've been back and forth with for probably a year. And it's actually a company that we've been kind of working with. So I've been working with a few of the representatives, going just back and forth, and they got questions, and I feel like we're pretty close to pulling the trigger on something, and then they disappear, and then they come back with some more questions, and then they disappear. So this whole thing's been dragged out like literally a year at this point. And I finally I think we're at this point where I think it's about to get locked down. And the assistant to the owner of the company, the CEO, finally reaches out to me, which is somebody I hadn't been dealing with up until this point. So I'm like, well, this is good. This is real good. And she says, look, the purpose of this project is to go ahead. And I knew that it was something to do with purified water.
Right.
And it's about an hour and 20 minutes away from here. So we were working on some commercial sized reverse osmosis units, and we're going to start off with a whole setup that can literally make 10 gallons a minute of purified water that's carbon filtered.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's a decent sized little project.
Yeah.
And it's scalable because we might be doing 100 gallons a minute. That's just sick amount of purified water coming out.
Yeah.
So the assistant says, hey, the owner he's got a lot of questions and he's like, well, what can we do? He's like, I've heard about adding minerals into the water and things like that. And he wanted to know what the deal was with that. Why would people do that? And I said, well, it can alter the taste, but really that's the only purpose. It's just taste. There's no benefit in having minerals in your water. And a lot of people listen to this are going to be shocked to hear that, but it is true. Minerals in your water is just for mouthfeel. That's why if you look at any bottle of purified water that you buy in the store, if you get the bottle that has minerals added, you'll always see underneath that it says for taste, because it doesn't have any health impact.
Yeah.
So that being said, he was kind of like, I'm intrigued. I want to meet with you. I want to see, what these machines look like. And I said, you know what? I have the ability to actually give you a taste test. So I know this is kind of bizarre. In 10 years of doing this, this was the first time I actually had somebody want to taste the difference between waters. And that's what they're going to make their buying decision on. So I'm intrigued at this point. I'm like, it's been a decade. This is the first time this has ever come up.
Yeah.
So we set up this meeting, and I'm like, look, let's go ahead. We'll meet here in the office, and I can kind of show you the equipment. I can get a little bit of chance to meet the team, see the warehouse, see the fact that I've got multiple different models of almost everything outside in stock, ready to go for a quick turnaround. And then we can go to Roastology, the coffee place.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, look, this place has mineralized water, but it's mineralized for a flavor purpose because that's what they were shooting for with the coffee. And I said, what we'll do is we'll get some water that is not mineralized and we'll bring it over there and you can do a side-by-side taste test. So he loved that idea. So we all meet here. We sit down and this guy he's all business. He's coming in with his suit looking, but he's out of somewhere up north, like DC type area.
Right.
So dressed, all dressed to the nines. Nothing sloppy about him at all. Just 100% dialed in. And I could tell he was in it because he was looking for something in particular. So he starts grilling me here, and we're kind of getting down to business, and I told him really my background about how I ended up getting in the water business, and what my motivations were with leaving corporate life to go ahead and get into making people's lives better, and that was the turning point, because at that moment I could see something inside him change, and he wasn't in here to beat me up and try to rake me over the coals or anything like that.
Right. And
he said, look, I'm going to tell you why I'm here. And he says, my vision is to create an American water, like a bottled water concept.
Okay.
That's going to be an empire. And basically what he's trying to talk about is something kind of like Pellegrino
Okay.
Like something that you go, oh, it's a water from America. Is it the good stuff like Pellegrino or Fiji, if you're talking about the Fiji Islands?
Right.
And I bring those up in particular because he was like, I don't understand why people would buy something that has elevated levels of arsenic in it, like Fiji, or uranium, like in a Pellegrino from Italy. And I'm sitting there, first thing I'm thinking is, how come I didn't know about those contaminants being in there?
Right.
Yeah. So this guy, he's detailed, he's already dug in, and he knows things that you just got to dig into. He said, I want to create this American bottled water. So I was like, you think our visions might be similar and we might be working together more than you even realize right now. So that was his whole thing. He's like, before I go investing into like the full development of this, and he's talking about purified water, he's talking about carbonating and having sparkling and still as two different options. Right. And this guy knows his stuff. He's not just some CEO. I mean, he's talking about the chemistry and what temperature and exactly how long it has to sit for and the oxygen content.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we were nerding out pretty hard. So he knew his stuff. He was very, very shrewd and knowledgeable. And I was like, good, this feels good.
Yeah.
So I said, look, we've got a unit here. We've got our residential system. And he was like, well, how can we look at consistency? Because, of course, at this point, now we're talking about making sure that the product is 100% scalable and always tastes the same, like McDonald's. You always know, no matter if you're in Oklahoma or if you're in West Virginia or you're in Florida, you go to McDonald's, it's gonna taste the same.
Yeah.
Same consistency. So that's kind of what he was looking for. And I said, well, the main driver, really, once you run things through reverse osmosis, the main indicator is the conductivity. But most people look at it as TDS, which is total dissolved solids. And it's a little meter. We've talked about the zero pitcher on previous episode.
Yeah.
And the zero pitcher got its name because it uses some DI resins that basically grab a hold of all the contaminants so that there aren't any more dissolved solids left in that water. And when you hold this meter in it, it'll tell you zero. So it says it's pure. So I bring out this, we got the basic, the cheap meter, the $15 meter. And I'm like, this is one that we basically give to all of our customers, not for accuracy, but more so that they can have some sort of a gauge.
Yeah, you got like a general idea.
Yeah, well, yeah. And like we just had a customer that they periodically use theirs, and they're like, my number is a little different than it was, and they needed their membrane changed. But you're never going to be able to tell until you have some device like this to be able to kind of read it and go, that's not normal. Mm-hmm. I can't taste it yet, but that's not how it's really normally supposed to be. So let me get it checked out. And their gut inclination was right. So I pulled out this $200 TDS meter, and I'm like, let's go ahead and use this good one today. And I held it in our water out of the faucet over here, which is carbon filtered and softened, and it was about 160 parts per million. Now, the EPA says, you really shouldn't be drinking anything over 500, but that's just a guideline because you have no idea if it's all lead, then you're going to be a lead statue by the time you get a thimble full of that inside your body.
Right.
So it's not about the TDS as much as it's about what's in it. But long story short, I was actually surprised, we had a zero coming out of our reverse osmosis. Now, ours have been running for a while, and they typically do get better quality in terms of the water quality. Mm-hmm. They slow down a little bit because it's basically like kind of plugging up over time, but it's still cranking out water. So it's good until it's not good.
Right.
So he's like, okay, so this is zero, and he's tasting this thing, and it was cracking me up actually, because he and his assistant, I realized that this was a almost poorly planned thing. I thought we were going to be doing a taste test entirely at the coffee shop.
Right.
He's like, I'm sitting here getting ready to do a side-by-side, and I realized we don't have any friggin' glasses. We don't have one glass because none of us uses anything other than our big our stainless steel thermoses.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. I don't even have any friggin' glasses to do a before and after. And then I had to come up with 4 of them because they both wanted to do a before and after here. So I'm going back through there, and I find these demonstration glasses that were, I completely cleaned them all. They were nice, clean, sterile, and everything. But he's sitting there like it's a fine wine. He's taking in the bouquet. He's trying to spin it around to see if it's got legs. He's taking the sips and swishing it around in the mouth. I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh.
He's a water sommelier.
Yes, I'm glad you said that word because I always screw up the pronunciation of that. But yeah, he was into it, and his assistant was, of course, into it because he's looking at her for affirmation on all this. And he's like, I like it. I like it a lot.
Nice.
I'm like, this is 0.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, let's go check out the water after it's been mineralized. And so we all get loaded up and we head on over to Roastology. And I gave the owner a heads up the day before. I was like, I might be bringing in a couple of people here doing I know it's weird, but a water taste test because you've got one of the systems with custom water and it's actually everywhere in your facility. And he's like, absolutely, bring them on in. So bring him on in there. And this guy's from European area.
Okay.
That was the other big screw up that I did that day. I didn't realize that the water that Roastology had out there for patrons to just have free water, which is nice. They actually had this glass jug set up. It was purified our water sitting up there. He had nice glass, real glass glasses and everything. It was really well done. But there was ice in it. Now, here's the good news. That ice is also made with the reverse osmosis.
Yep.
So my first thought was, aha, this won't be a problem because if the ice melts, it's not going to change the impact of this test. Well, a lot of folks from European area don't like cold water. Mm-hmm. My wife is from Beirut. She just cannot have water with ice in it.
Interesting.
I know. Iced tea, forget it. She likes room temp stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know that's bizarre. Like, I grew up in the Midwest. You just pack your glass with ice and the colder the better.
Yep.
But it's a cultural thing. And I saw real quick, I was like, oh crap, this is going to be bad. And because he's like, I can't have cold water. It's going to ruin my palate. And I was like, aha, all of their faucets here are running through our system. So instead of using the cold water, he got water. One of the baristas took the glasses and got their sample right out of the cold, but that was, of course, room temp.
Right. So
everything went perfectly. And he's actually going between, and I bring a jug of our water here, the same water he had just tasted here at the shop. So we're like pouring my jug, and then he's got his other one, and he's going through the whole thing all over again just to validate what he felt before. And he's back and forth, and finally he's like, I definitely like the pure one. He's like, I don't need those minerals. Mm-hmm. He's like, but I needed that to know that I was going the right direction. So I was like, perfect, wonderful. And then the owner of Roastology came out there, and the two of them were kind of nerding out for a while, talking about coffee and the origins, and it was actually a pretty cool experience.
Nice.
So it went about as perfect as it could.
Good.
We ended up, I dropped like $50 on coffee that I sent them both home with. I don't know how I got suckered into that, but that was the whole taste test. The story gets super interesting. And I'm going to tell you the rest of that after the break. Because it's hard to believe, but we're already at our halfway break here.
Yes, we are.
So don't go anywhere. Come right back and you'll hear the rest of the story. Hi, I'm Paul, host of Water Guy Unfiltered. If you're looking for fun topics like landfill juice and the history of coffee mixed in with things like haloacetic acids and the forever chemical PFAS, you've come to the right place. Check out Water Guy Unfiltered and learn the raw truth about water stuff, where it's educational and informative with a shot of humor just to keep it fun. We started as a weekly radio show, and now we're podcasted everywhere. Join us. And we are back.
We are back.
With part 2, the second half
Yes.
of the My Water is Your Water.
You left us on a cliffhanger
I
on the last
did.
part.
So yeah, that was I gotta actually get myself pumped up for this. So we came back. We had our I had our little final sit down meeting. And he said, I definitely want to move forward with this. And he's like, let me tell you why I'm here. And he kind of went into that whole, this is what, this is my vision. This is where there's a certain aquifer here in Virginia that is, he's identified as that's where this water needs to come from.
Okay.
And that's why he has put this facility where he's putting it, which of course I'm going to keep top secret.
Of course.
So he said, I actually came from California. And I'm like, oh, my wife's originally from California.
Okay.
After moving here from Lebanon a long time ago. And I'm trying to relate.
Yeah.
And he was asking me, there was one particular piece of equipment that we have, and he said, where's this made? And I said, this particular piece is actually made in the Ukraine, but it's in the area that's been pretty much insulated from the conflict, and they moved production over into Germany. And he looks at me without batting an eye, and he says, nothing's made in Ukraine. And I'm thinking to myself, it's interesting.
What do you know?
Yeah, what does he know that I don't know? And he
Right.
said, things are only made in Ukraine because of the tariff. There's no tariff situation on them as
Right.
opposed to the other countries over there.
Right.
He's like, it's 100%. It's just, that's why. And I'm at that point, I actually was like, I'm just going to sit there and shut up, because he obviously knows more about international trade than I do.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's
And
crazy.
Yeah, I was like, okay, he's more, this dude's dialed in.
Yeah.
And he obviously has some knowledge. And so he says, look, really, all I wanted to be was a farmer. And
He said that?
he said that.
Wow.
And I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, that is not what I thought would ever come out of this guy's mouth.
Right.
He's like, I just wanted my kids to grow up on a farm with me and have nice farm life.
That's awesome.
And he said that years ago, we bought some property back in like 2007. Right when everything was at its peak before the crash.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought thousands of acres.
Wow.
If I remember right, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 acres.
Wow.
And he was very detailed. He's like kind of like diagramming the plot, like he's going off of memory. And he's like, what do you know about pistachios? And I'm like, I know I love them. That's really about it. It's a hard-shelled nut.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, where's he going with this?
Right.
That's such a bizarre question. And he's like, pistachios have great farmability in California. And I'm thinking to myself,
Okay.
I thought they required a lot of water. And I said something about, I said, they need a lot of water, don't they? And he says, no, that's almonds. And I'm like, he's right, because they make almond milk out of almonds because there's so much liquid in them.
Yeah.
But the pistachios are pretty much all just little dried up, roasted things. So he said, a pistachio, if you plant one now, it will grow if it's in the perfect environment, it will grow and you will get your first pistachio after 10 years. And I'm like, that's actually kind of interesting. And he points across the street here and he says, and they're big. He's like, this isn't a tiny little bush. This is a real tree like those. And he's pointing. And they got trees across the street here. You can't reach around them.
Right.
So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Wow.
The pistachio trees get that big.
Right.
But apparently they grow in the right environment. They grow pretty quick from a seed to making seeds. And it takes about 10 years. But in the meantime, they don't require a lot of water, but they require, obviously, water in order to do their thing. And I was like, he kind of pointed out the whole almond thing. And he says, no, the almond trees, the root systems are kind of like fanned out, near the surface. And he's like, with a pistachio tree, it's more like a carrot. It's a straight down. So it taps in. Once it gets established, that's why they don't need that much water. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm learning all sorts of things today.
Yeah, this guy is like...
He's got
a lot of knowledge up there.
Yeah, he's just dropping knowledge bombs all over me.
Wow.
And so at this point, I'm intrigued, and everybody in the office is kind of like not paying attention, but they're really like riveted by this conversation.
Right.
Like, who is this guy?
Right.
Why does he know so many weird things? And so he said, yeah. So over in California, this whole fascination with water that I have now stems from the screwed up part of California, which is all of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody wonders why, if you're an attorney listening to this and you wonder why people hate attorneys, this story is for you, because this is exactly why people hate attorneys. So when he was over there, and I had no knowledge of any of this stuff, he's telling me, yeah, we had literally thousands of acres. We got our pistachio trees, and we have water there's only one company that provides the water over there in this particular section of California. And he said, the water is owned by two people, basically, for the most part. It's a married couple.
Okay.
And they're part of, if you look it up now, you'll see, we can talk about this part, but they are a big part of the Wonderful. You've seen Wonderful pistachios in the store? That's their empire.
Interesting.
So they not only are into the Wonderful pistachios, but they're also the owners of Fiji Water.
Wow.
Yes. So he was telling me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything's so intertwined. So these oligarchs, for lack of a better term, they're in charge of all the water over there. And he says for the first 10 years, it was a reasonable rate. We can all live with that. And he said, and here's what happened. It changed. They know that the pistachio gets to maturity after 10 years. So once they let your crops grow and get to maturity, they raise the rates to the point where they're taking almost 100% of your profits. And you can't do a damn thing about it.
That's disgusting.
I felt the same way. I was mad for him.
Right.
I'm like, that is so messed up.
Yeah.
And I could tell that this isn't he just wanted to be a farmer.
Right.
And he obviously had some money, because you don't just accidentally come into thousands of acres and turn it into a pistachio farm.
Right.
But he said on that 10th year, it changed from me being my own farmer to me being a slave working for them. Because no matter what I did, all the money that I brought in was going to them for the water. And I said, my first reaction was, well, what, there's no wells at all over there? And he says, you can't drill a well. Yeah, Ethan's eyebrows kind of did the same thing, that when I was like, what do you mean you can't drill a well? You can't drill an irrigation well to water your crops? No. In California, you're not allowed. There's a whole, in preparation for today's episode, I was trying to go through all of these legal documents to the point where it just got me so mired down in the mud that I didn't give up, but I really abbreviated what we were going to talk about. But let's just say, I'm going to give you like the Cliff Note version of this. California. In 1914, the California Water Commission was formed. They kind of realized that there was water is a natural resource, and they needed to at least have something in place to make sure that it didn't get, devastated.
Right.
So that was over 110 years ago. So they defined water. It goes by the source of the water. So you got surface water, which is quite simply any body of water plus underground subterranean streams in known and definite channels. So if there's something that there's water underground, like an underground creek or an underground river, that is actually still considered a surface water in California. Then you have groundwater, which is underground water that's not defined by the surface water classification. So it can be, instead of a stream, it can be like a deposit of water, like an aquifer, so to speak, that's not moving. So that would be a groundwater. And then they have the third category of the source is artificially stored, recycled water, or imported water. So artificially stored, all that means is you're putting it somewhere. My first thing that I think of is a gigantic holding tank, because we do a lot of those here. But you could build a reservoir on your property if you've got just the right access to being refillable, and now you have an artificially stored water source. Recycled water, which is sewage, basically non-drinkable water. Once you recycle the water, like the sewage people, and if you've ever been on a cruise ship, this is really what they do with all the shower water. The showers and the toilets go to different places on the cruise ship. Okay. Typically, the toilets just get purged out to sea, from what I understand.
Makes sense.
But the shower water, for the most part, as long as you don't pee in the shower, nobody does that, do they?
Of course not.
Of course not. But the shower water is what's considered gray water, because it's not black water. It's not the sewage part. But either way, that nasty water that goes down the drain has to go somewhere in California. So there's companies that are in business to take sewage and wastewater, and once they have fixed it and run it through filtration, now they own that water. So they got it for free. They were paid to take it. They fix it, which of course is value added. It's well worth it. But then they own that water. So that is a way that you can get water, is to recycle it over there. Or you can import the water. And when I think of importing, usually I think of like a boat, right? Bringing it in from another country. Right. Imported basically means you're trucking it in, you're piping it in. And if you do that, that falls into that final kind of miscellaneous category. But if it gets imported, you pretty much own it, because you took all the risk, you did all the expense, you brought it in there. So that's just kind of the classifications here. Something happened in 1994 that I'm going to come back to, because it's going to make more sense in a minute or two. Fast forward over 1994 to 2015, on January 1st, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act went into effect, which basically is more government monitoring and regulation. Right. And they created or allowed the creation of GSAs. Now, GSA isn't government, isn't federal. In this case, GSA stands for Groundwater Sustainability Agencies. Basically little sub-agencies that go out there, and they have been granted by the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. They've been granted the authority to conduct enforcement and they have tools out there to go ahead and help them do whatever. They can assess pumping fees. They can determine allocations. They can mandate cutbacks in water usage if the water supply looks like it needs to be brought back in check. So for the last 10 years, there's really been this Sustainable Groundwater Management Act thing that has impacted basically all of California by allowing these little splinter organizations to kind of micromanage everything. So that happened in 2015. And we're digging in. At this point, I got to go back to the story because none of this is going to make sense. I asked my client here, why can't you drill a well? Mm-hmm. And he says, you're not allowed to drill a well in California because they will sue you.
The state of California will.
Well, not necessarily the state of California, but he was, apparently there's an aquifer underneath that it sounds like, remember I said that there is artificially stored? That falls underneath, if you artificially store it, you own it. So there's this thing called the Kern Water Bank. And the way that I'm understanding this whole thing is that it's an underground aquifer that they pull water out of, but they also put water back into. And by doing that, now they own the water that's underground. So you're not allowed to drill a well because they own all the water that's underground.
That's crazy.
That is just criminal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these farmers are sitting here basically, you're either in business just because you want to, survive, or you're just going to throw up your hands and you're going to sell your farm.
Yeah.
Well, what he ended up doing, he sold his farm because he was like, I am not going to live under somebody else's thumb, and I see exactly what's going on over here. You people are a bunch of corrupt bastards.
Yeah.
And that is not how America is supposed to be. So he didn't sell just to anybody. He purposely sold all of his pistachio farm to a competitor. And if I understand this right, the competitor was probably wonderful because he sold to these people because he thought that they were big enough to go head to head and fight this battle of the underground water. Well, let's just say that the billionaire couple had more connections, and they basically drove this other company into bankruptcy. And part of what happened was COVID. So when COVID happened, I don't know if you remember, I said that they also owned Fiji.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, the Resnicks, that's the name of the billionaire couple in California, they were in the Fiji water business. Now, ports were closed. You couldn't get stuff in and out unless it was an essential item. Pistachios aren't considered an essential item. So the guy that my client sold to was sitting here with pistachios that couldn't be exported.
Jeez.
While the Fiji water people were bringing water in and out on boats because they were allowed to, because it was essential. So they were allowed to keep revenue generation going, and it's only a matter of time before you can ride out the storm. And the Resnicks had way more connections and stored up money. So it sounds like his farm ended up being part of the Wonderful organization, which is now owned by Resnicks. So that leads me into the next part. So it made me go, well, how in the heck how can you buy something and somebody owns the ground underneath you or anything in the ground?
Right.
And it kind of made me, I was like, Stacy, we need to dig into water, the water laws, because this doesn't even make sense. And in most states, you own, and most of the quotes out of the laws are, you own the boundaries of your property. And I've heard that some states it goes up like 500 feet in the air. And I think in Virginia here, she was telling me that it says it goes up to the heavens and down below to the infinite depths or to hell or something like that.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it was basically, you there's no limits. If it's up above you or down below you, your property line defines what you own, and whatever's underneath or above that, that's yours. Well, in California, it doesn't work that way, especially for water.
Of course.
So, there's water rights in California. There's 3 different types of water rights. Riparian, and this is basically if you have a property and it borders a body of water like a stream or something like that, you can, as long as it borders it and you've maintained custody of this, there's a chain of ownership, you are allowed to use that water for fair and reasonable beneficial use. So basically, if you're on a creek, you can take some water from the creek to do normal things.
Right.
That's a riparian water right. You can take water from there, but you can only store it for less than 30 days. So the concept of, hey, there's a river right now, there's a crap ton of water coming down the river because we just got rains, I'm going to grab all that water that I can and put it in my own little quarry or pit and save it for when we're dry. That won't work if you only have a riparian water right, because after 30 days, you have to give it back. So I thought that was pretty screwed up. I guess I understand. You can't go in there and just divert the whole river and take it all and everything downstream dies until you're done for your own purposes. But it seems pretty extreme that you got, in a month, you got to give it all back. So that's the first water right. Overlying water right is the right to extract groundwater underlying your property, basically like we do here with a well. And obviously they understand that underneath your property, it's not just your water. You're basically tapping into an underground reservoir. So they say that you can tap in with an overlying water right and have fair and just proportion to that water. Now, I'm imagining that if I wanted to go to California and tap into, if I found an area that had overlying water rights, and I said I want to do a bottling company, they'd be like, no. You can't take our water and then haul it over the state line to somebody else. But if I'm trying to use it for something on site, I guess, they would probably call that fair and just, as long as I didn't go crazy with it.
Right.
But if there's a shortage, if you have an overlying right, everybody that's on there, like literally, you can imagine everybody that has a well, they all must equally cut back. So if they say, oh my gosh, the underground is, we're down 100 billion gallons of where we thought we were going to be, everybody has to slow down by 50%. You have to use half of your water. And if everybody does that, the theory is that it's it'll be fixed. I don't know how true that would be, but whatever. And then the third water right is the appropriative water right. It's not adjacent or overlying. Basically, it's neither one of the riparian or the overlying, but it basically says that you can get water because you need it, but you're not close to any water. And I don't really understand too much about how, it sounds like it's somebody that's more landlocked away from water. They can't drill a well because you're on the Kern water bank, and you're not attached to anything that you can actually just suck water out of. So you have a right to water your crops, but that one, you're like the lowest priority of the 3. So you only get water if there's a surplus after the riparian and the overlying people have taken their water.
Wow.
I know, you're like, I don't know if this is a fun episode or not. But that is where I went down the rabbit hole after I heard about this. But yes, I met somebody that apparently was tapped into or over the Kern water bank was not allowed to pull any water out for their own crops, driven out of business, and now he's over here and he wants to stick it in their eye. Good for him, and I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Because that is so messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, all the guy wanted to be was a farmer.
Right.
And he came over here he was so disgusted, he came over here to the complete opposite side of the country to basically start over. So, yeah, it was just a fascinating one. You ever meet those people that you're just like, wow, I'm so glad I got a chance to meet this person, because just opened up a whole bunch of knowledge that I never even thought of before. All right. So since 1914, you have to apply for a permit if you want to do anything in California with water. And this permit may take 10 years. Imagine that. So basically water in California is like gold, literally.
Yeah.
If there was a way of piping it in, which I can tell you that they wouldn't let you do that, even though they need it desperately, because that's always been my question. Why don't we just pipe the friggin' water over there? We have a crap ton of water here in Virginia. Mm-hmm. We got a crap ton of water in the Midwest. Good grief. I used to live next to Lake Michigan. It looks like an ocean.
Yeah.
And it is a body of fresh water that is practically limitless. I mean, you don't want to just start piping it right into the ocean directly, but you could feed the entire country with what goes on up in the Great Lakes. If you've ever flown into O'Hare, have you ever flown into O'Hare?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Nope.
We used to fly into there all the time. And when we were going over Lake Michigan, you cannot see the sides of the lake. You swear that you are over an ocean.
Wow.
I mean, you're looking down and you're like, wow. It looks like you're on the ocean. There is no land in sight. It's the craziest thing that it's a lake.
Wow.
And that's just one of them. So there is a whole bunch of water. But I can tell you, there's so much corruption over there in California. They like to bitch and complain that they don't have things. They don't have things because the bureaucracy and the corruption is so deep. We have the ability to fix them.
Yeah.
They're just too stupid to open their eyes. I hate to, if you're listening in California, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I feel bad for you. I really do. I've got relatives, in-laws that are in California, and it's a whole different, it's a place I love visiting. There is no way I'd like to live there.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. Well, the traffic alone, once I left Chicago, I was like, nope, not doing this again.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need traffic. Richmond's plenty good. But, I said I was going to come back to 1994.
Yes, 1994.
So this pistachio farmer that was at my office told me about this secret meeting that went on when all this stuff transpired, and that's how this oligarch family ended up basically getting in control. So 1994 in Monterey Bay, California, they call it the Monterey Amendments. So it was water officials, water infrastructure contractors, and agricultural landowners with water rights. They arranged a secretive meeting at a resort, and this group, which was a mix of private companies and public agencies, they rewrote California's water laws without any input from the voters, taxpayers, or legislators. So they just got this stuff rammed through in this secret little door meeting. It was really interesting because I found out that there's paper water. And I was like, what the heck is paper water? It's kind of like futures of water, where you're buying on future water and you're paying a rate, kind of like futures of corn and soybeans and stuff like that. I didn't realize that that's what that you actually would do that. But yeah, in California, they trade paper water.
Interesting.
And here's the bizarre part. I should have looked up the actual comparison to here in Virginia, but water prices for 326,000 gallons of water, it can cost anywhere from $250 to $5,000. Depending on the need and the time of the year and everything, which makes complete sense from what he was telling me. the amount of water and the rates that they're like, oh, well, we're going to charge the $5,000 right now because we know you need it. And boom, at the end of the year, guess what? You didn't make any money. Yep. We get it all. But yeah, this Kern water bank used to belong to the state of California. And then it was transferred over to a few private water contractors. Apparently one of them is Westside Mutual, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Wonderful Foods. Wonderful pistachios, right? So Wonderful, Palm Wonderful, I believe, is another, the pomegranate. I think they're another one that's underneath there. And yeah, they manage, I think they have between 58 and 57% stake. There it is right there. So the Resnicks, this couple, the wonderful part of the Kern Water Bank means that they, at a high level of when the water's selling for a peak, they have a $1.7 billion underground water storage because of this secret agreement. So I wasn't kidding when I said it was a billionaire couple. And they have they've kind of taken over. If you own water and you own energy, you own everything. It's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
I would have never believed it, but literally he was in my office and we did digging afterwards. Just like, there's no way. There's just no way that it's that bad.
Yeah.
And it is that bad. So, yeah. So that was my, that's why we call this one My Water is Your Water, because apparently you can have your land over there, which is already overpriced, but the water is really where the control happens. So, anyway.
That's tragic.
Tragic. So, yeah. So that's California. It makes me appreciate everything that we have over here, where you can drill a hole in the ground, and as much as I hate it, you can almost do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
So, well, I hope everybody got at least some education and awakening out of this episode.
Yeah, I learned a lot in this episode about like obscure stuff, though.
Yeah. The whole, everybody's gonna be like, I know that pistachio trees take 10 years. Yeah, he had his trees. I think they were 12 years in when he threw in the towel.
Oh.
So he had literally waited 12 years with his kids, and he watched his dream just get shattered.
Yeah.
But I'm going to help him rebuild this.
There you go.
So you're going to laugh in 10 years when we're looking back at the empire.
Yes.
You're going to say, we did a podcast on this. We knew it was coming. So, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe since you made it to the end. And we look forward to next time. We'll make it another exciting episode. Be safe and drink water.